My name is Maria Iscel Bulatao. I'm with Madebymree, so I have a big love for the community, the Filipino community, and just supporting a lot of small businesses. I've been working as a nurse for 11 years, so I work in a very Monday to Friday sort of a setting, which is why weekends is a lot of the time where I do my baking and most of my business. Madebymree was started in 2019. I'm sort of at the tail end is when I started doing markets, and when the pandemic hit in 2020, it was kind of like, oh my gosh, now I have all of these other small business friends, people that were going sort of the same thing, like, do we continue on with our business, do we stop, what do we do? I found that in the pandemic time, it was great because I feel like people turn to food for comfort, because with food and taste and people falling back on memories, that's different from when you're crocheting something that's beautiful, but then how long will it exist? I find memories that are tied to food and those sort of experience have always been ones that resonate stronger with people and build that connection. And because I'm very much about building the connection with people, that's where my focus ended up being, was in food. I love macarons because of the makunat texture. I love the crunchy chew. I also thought that it was a great sort of bite-sized product, right? When somebody's eating a cupcake, you have to commit to the full cupcake. So all the sweets that goes into the one cupcake, you don't want to just bite into it and then it's bad. I feel it's a little bit better too, just food waste wise. Somebody bit into the macaron and they didn't like it. At least it's just that little piece versus a whole slice of cake versus a whole piece of cupcake of that sort of things. I think right now one of the most popular one is white rabbit candy, which I feel so many different Asian kids grew up eating and breaking their tooth on, or had that experience of trying to peel back that paper without ripping it. It's just one of those things. It's a very communal sort of experience for so many people. So when I started with the white rabbit candy, a lot of people are oh my god, it's awesome. And it's just that shared experience. Baking, especially something like a macaron, requires your full attention and so you have to be very thoughtful, precise, and hone in on that process. So I think a lot of people, when they start going into a business, they think about something that they were just good at, and somebody probably along the way had told them, yeah, you should monetize this, you could totally make money doing this. And I think for some people, your passion can sometimes be squashed once you turn it into a business, because there's so much more to that. Once you put something that you love out into the world, if it isn't received well, it's crushing. It's so soul crushing to people, and it's one of those things that you might not be thinking when you start your small business, because the community that you've currently had have loved it, and thought that it would be well and will support you through it. I think also they might not be thinking about all of the different things that you need to put into it. So as a baker, I love to just bake. I want to just be able to bake and do nothing, right? But thankfully, I have a little bit of photography skills behind me. So when I realized, oh, okay, why don't I use this skill towards this? You'll see my Instagram feed went from meh to kind of a little bit better, more visually appealing. And that comes with time and having to learn about what sells, how do I market this? How do I deal with an Instagram algorithm that's constantly changing? And there's so many different things to have to learn when you're running your small business that you don't necessarily think of, right? A lot of creators out there, I think, are yeah, I'm just going to create this and it's going to be fine. But the marketing, the networking, the building connections with people, the finding value in your work when other people might not, when you have that experience as an older adult, somebody who's been in a career for over a decade, and just a lot of learning about myself in general, and finding sort of that community that will support, that shares energy and exchanges energy. It's one of those things I would also say, as a small business, create create that support system, create have those people that will love you through the good and the bad of the business. Or at least I had to invest so much time sort of figuring out, what was my messaging? What did I want to share with the world? What did I want to do? Like test baking, going out grocery shopping for these things, and all the research and stuff that goes into it. I definitely would not be able to do it if I didn't have a partner that was supportive of the idea that this is for the greater good. I was using all this energy to focus on the wrong things, which definitely took a toll on my own mental health and just, is the value in my products or is in me as a person? Because I feel like that's what everybody wants to do, is they want their small business to grow. But the work that goes into that and how much you put into that, it can definitely waver on your confidence. It can waver on, who you are as a person if you aren't prepared mentally. You have to reframe your mind that you are not your business, you are you, and a business is an extension of you. I think framing that peace of mind, that your value, your worth is not on if X, Y, and Z like what you do. Because you're not going to please everybody, right? It's about focusing then on the energies that do and that help, remind you of who you are and why you're doing what you're doing. It's one of those things I was able to then create a community where I speak with these entrepreneurs who go through the same thing as me, the product might be different, but they also deal with the, oh my gosh, I'm my own media, I'm answering all these emails, I'm creating product, and we all go through the same stressors. So it's when you're thinking of mental health for this community, it's somewhat nice to know that it's a shared experience with other bakers, with other creators, with other artists. When you put something that you love out into the world, I feel like we all have that sort of shared experience. And not everybody is artistic or is in the culinary arts or is in or it's an artisan, but they put something. There's always something that somebody loves that they're putting out there, or they're struggling to put out there because they're not sure about how it's going to be received. And I think just having that strong mental is really important. Honestly, it means the world being able to share my culture with people of different cultures, with different upbringings. It's one of those things that I'm very fortunate that so many people paved the way, I think, before I started. And I have a deep appreciation for my elders and the people out there. I live sort of very close to Little Manila, and just having all of those different entrepreneurs there, knowing that they created a business, that they were successful, seeing a lot of other small businesses grow and be received by the Canadian community helped really to just take away a lot of the fears that I had originally as a Filipina in this community. Being in sort of the landscape and starting without really not knowing what was out there, or having an idea of what was out there but not knowing the work that was out there, is very much being in this community. It's amazing now because of the people that pave the way. That's how you create that community versus competition. It's that we're we have similarities, that we're all going through a lot of the same things. Yes, there are so many other bakers out there. There are other Filipino bakers for sure that are creating macarons, but everybody's process is different. And I would totally support, I support other bakers who create some of the same things that I do, and see, what's the inspiration behind this flavor, or what sort of method do you use when you're making macarons. And it's creating that community, it's creating your kapwa. It's because of the people that have paved the way for myself. I want to be able to be that that ate of entrepreneurship, to be able to support some people when they're doing that, when they're putting their work and their pieces out into the world, that they know that there's at least somebody in the community, in this landscape, that will be their community, that will be their collaborator, that will be their support versus their competition. The biggest thing as an entrepreneur is you really need to know the value of your time. When you're starting out your business, really seek out the people who value what you do. That will just make you happier.